Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Today we're talking about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Released in 2019, directed by J.J. Abrams, written by Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams from a story by Derek Connolly, Colin Trevorrow, J.J. Abrams, and Chris Terrio, starring Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, Donald Gleason, and, of course, Ian McDiarmid. McDiarmid? Is that how you say his name? I actually don't know.
I think I've always said McDiarmid.
McDiarmid? Sounds good to me.
Anyway.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. So, this was the final episode of the Skywalker Saga, I guess you could call it. The main movies. I mean, we had...
it's the Skywalker Saga.
Yeah, that's the best way to say it. The Skywalker Saga. And it was met with... It was met with mediocre reviews, I guess you could say.
Didn't you say it was the worst reviewed Star Wars movie?
I can't actually remember. I'm going to look it up right now. If it's not...
Oh, wait. Maybe it was Last Jedi.
Last Jedi is very well reviewed by critics, not so much by audiences. However, I can't remember if critics liked this one more than Phantom Menace, or if they liked Phantom Menace less, or more than this one.
Well, I thought it was at least Last Jedi or Rise that was like the worst reviewed Star Wars movie ever.
Last Jedi has like a 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. So critics really liked Last Jedi.
I didn't know that.
Rise of Skywalker has a 51%. And my computer's going super slow, so let me look at my phone real quick. So Last Jedi has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics 90%. Audience 43%. So audiences didn't care for Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker has a 51% critic score, 86% audience score.
Really?
Yes. And then Phantom Menace has a 53% critic score. So Rise of Skywalker is actually lower than Phantom Menace, and the audience score is 59%. So yes, it is the worst reviewed Star Wars film from what I can tell here. I don't see... Oh, there's Revenge of the Sith. 80% for Revenge of the Sith. I'm missing, I don't see Empire and Return, but I know they're better than
now,
that.
we did a podcast on Revenge of the Sith, but I will go ahead and say this, if I didn't in the episode. But I'm pretty sure that 80% has some cushion on it, because the critics were like, well, it was better than the other two.
Well, that could be. It very well could be a... It could be a, the other two were god-awful, so this is a step in the right direction, at least. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's something I was going to bring up later, but it's interesting. I've seen a lot of hate for... I mean, there was a lot of hate for Last Jedi. And I've seen a lot of hate for this movie, too, even though it says the audience score is 86%, so I don't... Maybe I'm just seeing kind of isolated things on the internet, but I've seen a lot of love for the prequel trilogy. So, from what I've seen on the internet, it seems like the prequel trilogy is more liked than this trilogy, which is not the case for me. However, the more I thought about it, I was thinking there's probably there's a lot of kids who grew up with the prequel trilogy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now they're adults. And they are the ones posting online and everything, and I think there's that nostalgia factor for them.
Yep, totally.
And that's what it is. And I think there's going to be kids, 15 years from now, there's going to be love for this trilogy now on the internet, because those kids have grown up.
That the prequel fans are going to be like, what?
Right.
Those movies were terrible.
These are awful. Yeah, exactly. So, but...
yeah, so in my opinion, this trilogy was... definitely better created, and just it felt more like Star Wars than the prequels.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to have a younger generation that disagrees with me, because they're like, but the prequels do feel like Star Wars.
Right.
but
it feels like their Star Wars.
exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have asked myself that question, knowing we were going to talk about this movie, thinking like, which trilogy do I like better, the prequel trilogy or this trilogy? And I got to go with this trilogy. You put a gun in my head. Got to put a gun in my head and said, we're watching episodes 1 through 3 right now, or episodes 7 through 9. I'd pick 7 through 9.
Right, and would you even hesitate?
No.
That's my point.
Right.
Like it's distinguishable that in my, obviously you agree, in my opinion, this trilogy has something way more in the quality than the prequels did. And like I said, it feels more like Star Wars, and and we were talking about how a younger generation would say, but the prequels feel like Star Wars, and you said they're Star Wars. And that made me realize that this new trilogy, when I say it feels more like Star Wars, I obviously mean
the original trilogy.
The original Star Wars feel.
Right. And I agree with you. And I think part of it is just, I mean, we're going to get into it obviously in this episode, but there are issues with this film and this trilogy. There's flaws.
Yes.
But overall, I just like the aesthetic of this trilogy. I like that that's one of the things I don't like about the prequel trilogy, is just that, it's like 99% green screen, and you can just tell. And there's this story, I don't know if it's true or not, but I remember reading a long time ago about Martin Scorsese was making Gangs of New York, and he had created the sets for New York and the 5 Points and all that, the streets and all that. I think it was in England. He created, he built the set, not Scorsese himself, but he had it built. He's out there with a hammer and a saw, like building all the sets.
It's 11 o'clock. Are you going home? Gotta finish this set. I've been working on it all week.
We're shooting tomorrow.
Sir, you haven't eaten for 3 days.
I'm behind schedule. So he had the sets built and everything, and he was apparently George Lucas came and visited the set, and he was showing it off. Again, I don't know if this is true. This is just something I read or whatever a long time ago, but he was showing off the set to George Lucas. He was like, look, we built all this. This is, this street and blah, blah, blah. And George Lucas apparently turned to him and said, you can do all this in a computer now. And I think that right there signifies one of the major issues with the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And when everything is done on green screen in the computer, I think you lose some of the magic.
Right.
And obviously there's green screen in this trilogy and everything, but there are practical sets and there are practical effects and stuff like that. So,
and as time goes on, the green screen will get better, as it has. But when the prequels were made, like, it was cutting edge stuff at the time, so there was not a lot of fixing the flaws and all that stuff. Like, this was kind of the test mode of doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought of this, like you were talking about the prequels and saying that one of the issues was using the green screen. And that made me think too, because we were still kind of on the whole feel of the two different trilogies when we only had two of them. And that is, so the new trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, feels to me like you took the original trilogy and the prequels and they had a baby.
Right.
Because there's lots of aspects in these new ones that feel prequel-y. Not so much visually, but just the style it's done in. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Canto Bite. Like we were.
That's one.
Last
there's something in this too.
Oh, okay.
Or a few. I mean, you didn't feel that way?
Not as much. I mean, Canto Bite definitely feels prequel-y to me.
Uh-huh.
At least when they introduce Canto Bite and everything.
Right.
In this movie, I'm curious to know what scenes or
sure.
What.
Well, we'll see if you agree with me.
Sure.
But so it's. I was just saying that I feel like this new trilogy feels a lot like the original. Obviously more than the prequels were, because the prequels were kind of their own thing. You had the original trilogy, that was one thing. Then to me, the prequels don't feel like Star Wars at all.
Right.
They're their own style. And then this new one, I could definitely see how you could take both.
It's a blend.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool if you think about it, because that way you could watch, I haven't actually it would be a very long day. I don't even know if you could do it in one day. But I haven't actually sat down and watched episodes 1 through 9. And it might actually be kind of cool to do that one day, just because what you said, since it's kind of like the prequels and the original had a baby, you watch the prequels, then you go into the original, and then 7, 8, 9 is a blend of the two. And so I could see that being kind of a cool viewing experience, if you will.
That's definitely on my bucket list, I'd say.
I think it needs to happen one day, I think. Even if you do it you probably, let's see, each movie is, you get into these movies, they're a little bit longer than 2 hours, and the prequels are a little bit longer than 2 hours, but let's just say they're 2 hours each. That's 18 hours. You'd have to do almost a 24-hour viewing marathon in order to see all 9 in one day, but
maybe like during the holidays or something.
Right, yeah.
Because I told you how, if you remember Lord of the Rings back in the day, like, that was my father-in-law's kind of tradition, was watching the extended versions of Lord of the Rings back to back. And the first time I came over and experienced that, they were halfway through Two Towers, and I, as you know, love Lord of the Rings, and by the time we were into Return of the King, I was like, wow, like, I'm
this is long.
Yeah, I'm that, and that's just to the next movie.
Yeah.
So, and it was the last one. So I was like, we're almost there, but we have so long to go.
That's something I've wanted to do too, but you got to commit a whole day to it. It's all 3
and those
extended
movies,
editions.
Yes, and those movies are like as much, scenic cinematography that they do with it. Like, it's amazing to see, but if you're sitting down and doing that for 9 hours, it's that kind of makes it a little hard.
I think for me, my movie marathons are usually done over the course of a couple days. Like, I'll watch one movie one day, the next movie the next day, the next movie the next day.
Yeah, totally.
But with Star Wars, I still think it would be fun to have, if not one day, 2 days. Watch like the first 5 one day, and then the last 4 the next day, or something. I don't know,
or you could do a trilogy a day.
Yeah, you could do a trilogy a day, which would be kind of neat.
Yeah. So, I'm assuming you saw this opening night.
I did, yeah. I remember when tickets went on sale. I had, I've got, before COVID shut everything down, I had AMC A-List, which, you could get 3 movies a week and all that stuff for a monthly price. And then, but we also had, my wife and I also have Regal Unlimited, so we can see however many movies. It's just basically the same deal, just with Regal. And AMC, the tickets went on sale, and their website just like shut down. The app wasn't working. I couldn't get any. You had to go like into a waiting room, and it was just taking forever. And I got on Regal's app and was able to buy tickets like right away. So we didn't go to the theater we normally went to. We actually bought tickets for a theater we had never been to before, but it worked out. We saw it opening night. And then we also bought tickets for like 2 days later because we knew we were going to be going to Augusta, where my in-laws live. And we usually like to take my father-in-law out to see a movie. And that was like, what else are we going to see?
Does he like Star Wars?
We took him to see The Last Jedi, and he liked that, so we figured he'd like to go see Rise of Skywalker.
Is that like his first time seeing a Star Wars movie?
No.
You're like, but he liked The Last Jedi, so we figured he'd like the next one.
He's a man of few words, So it's one of those things where, like, we go see The Last Jedi, and he was like, that was a good movie. And we're like, cool, let's go see Rise of Skywalker.
But also, like, had he not seen Force Awakens?
I'm sure he had. He's a pretty big movie watcher, so if he hadn't seen it in the theaters. He
Gotcha.
probably rented it or something at some
Okay.
point. So,
Okay.
But yeah, he was down to see Rise of Skywalker. So I saw it like the Thursday opening night, I think, and then I saw it again on Saturday.
Okay.
But since then, I had not seen it since then until I watched it a couple days ago for this.
Interesting.
What about you? Did you see it opening night?
No. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
This is the first Skywalker Saga movie I did not even see in the theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I waited.
So you saw episodes 1 through 8, but you didn't get to see 9 in the theater.
Correct. Because I saw episodes 4, 5, and 6 for the
re-release
special edition. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. We weren't even born yet when A New Hope came out originally, so.
Well, you weren't.
Well, you weren't either.
I know.
So yeah, what? So you saw this after it got released on video on demand, or once it got released digitally or Blu-ray, or did you?
Yeah, I think I redboxed it.
Oh, okay.
And I can't, I don't know, knowing that Luke was gone and and just assuming, and the reaction, I saw that the reaction was just not, it was kind of the same that people had to The Last Jedi. I liked The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But, plus, I'm pretty sure I was tight on money. And I was like, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
And because this came out 2019.
Yeah, it came out back in December.
Yeah. So as you know, I had a lot going on in my life.
Yes.
And so that was obviously a factor too.
Sure.
So anyway, I redboxed it after it was out of the theater, and was pretty excited to see it. I was thrilled. I remember when the teaser came out and you heard Palpatine's voice.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, I had been wanting since the beginning the Emperor to be somehow involved. I think we talked about this maybe in the Last Jedi episode about how I think in some of the novels there was indication of recordings that he had done, so in case he died he could continue his plan.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, what if those aren't recordings?
Mm-hmm.
And after this movie, I would say that they probably weren't recordings, that it was the Emperor, because those books are canon.
What novels are they? Are they
just some of the ones
adaptations of the movies?
No. They're like some of the ones that came out
in between these new episodes. I got what you're saying.
But they're canon,
right? Yeah.
What?
I haven't read any. Well, no, I didn't. I haven't read any of those. I remember seeing a couple that piqued my interest and everything, but But I didn't read that, so I didn't know about the recordings. That's kind of cool, or the broadcast. That's how this movie opens up.
Exactly.
The very first thing you read is the dead speak, and it's about Emperor Palpatine's voice being heard on a broadcast. So
yep. And yeah, so when I first read that, I was like, it's the recordings that they're talking about, and then I came up again too in my mind. I was like, because in the teaser you heard his voice. So I remember thinking, in the teaser, I can't remember what he says in the teaser. If he says something that would have canceled it being a recording, it has to be him in order to say something like that. He wouldn't have said that if he were dead and it was just a recording. I can't remember. But I remember after the teaser thinking, please, bring him back. And before that, back in Force Awakens and Last Jedi with Snoke, that's what I really wanted Snoke to be, was the Emperor. And he was just deformed to where you couldn't recognize him. Mm-hmm. But there were things that had canceled that. Like, apparently he was of a certain race
Oh, interesting.
that is, I believe, in some of the books that are canon, and they're like 7, they're really tall, and certain physical features that they described the race that Snoke was didn't match up with whatever
Emperor
race Palpatine is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's something that was actually one of my first notes was, I love how we jump into this.
Uh-huh.
And did you say Last Jedi cheats by going to the space and then cutting to the planet? Because this one does.
Yeah, and actually, I haven't gone back to watch, we talked about the opening of Return of the Jedi and how the only thing I can remember about the opening of Return of the Jedi is that we start on Tatooine and C-3PO and R2-D2 are making their way up to Jabba the Hutt's palace, if you will. So I don't know. That one might start in space and then do a quick cut. I don't recall, but yeah, Last Jedi. I said, I think about. I don't remember how Force Awakens does it either. So maybe they all just have A New Hope.
Well, doesn't starts? Go ahead.
A New Hope starts with the Rebel ship, and then that iconic shot of the Star Destroyer flying past the camera, over the camera, and we have. But then right after that iconic shot, it jumps to inside the spaceship.
And I wonder how many people have really lost the effect of what that original opening in A New Hope has, because now it's just a Star Destroyer.
Right. Well, I think it even didn't have that effect on me because I didn't see that movie. I saw the original trilogy way out of order. I think I saw Return of the Jedi first, and then I think I saw bits and pieces of Empire, and I don't think I may have seen bits and pieces of A New Hope, but I definitely didn't see all of A New Hope until I saw it in the theater for the re-release.
Right.
And so by the time I saw it in theaters for the re-release, I had already seen Spaceballs, and Spaceballs parodies that opening shot. And so I knew kind of what was coming. I mean, when I first saw that shot, and I had probably even seen that opening shot, elsewhere in whatever, I'd probably seen clips of it or something. I don't know. But yeah, it didn't, I don't think that opening shot, I'm sure, I wish I could have seen that opening shot, opening weekend of Star Wars back in 77, not having any idea what to expect.
Right.
Because I imagine that opening shot was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
To see for the first time like that.
Right. Yeah. You've just got this ship that just keeps going, and you're
it seemingly just does never ends.
Yeah. And why is that big of a ship interested in this tiny little speck?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You start off with a mystery right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, yeah, and this movie does something very similar. You see, I think it's a couple of ships in space, and then it immediately cuts to the planet, and you see Kylo Ren wiping out a bunch of people. I should have watched the teasers before we started recording, because I remember before every one of these new movies, there was a speculation online that they were going to cheat even more, kind of with those opening shots, if you will. I remember when Force Awakens came out, there's a shot in the teaser of Force Awakens where it's a shot of Rey in rummaging through the wreckage of that Star Destroyer on Jakku. And right before she moves something out of her way, it's she's got the goggles on and her mask on. You can't even tell it's her. And there's a partition in between the camera and Rey, and there's little holes in it that light and dust is kind of getting through. And she moves it out of the way, and then you see her face, or her covered face. And I remember reading online, people were speculating that partition with the holes looks like space. And people thought that it was going to be...
That's right.
Yeah, you were going to see the crawl, and then it was going to kind of tilt down. You were going to see stars, or what you thought was stars, and then she was going to move it out of the way, and that was going to be the opening of the movie. And I thought that was a really cool idea.
Didn't
turn out that way.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out that way. And then I remember when Last Jedi came out, and I don't remember the shot for this one as well, but I do remember what they thought it was going to go into, and it was there's a shot of Rey slamming her hand down on the rock when she's being trained by Luke briefly, And I think whatever the rock, I think maybe if it might have even been in the teaser. They might have made it look like space. I forget. But people were thinking that was going to be the opening shot of the movie.
Because I think it was like cinders, wasn't it?
I think
like
so.
Fire that was kind of looking like stars, and then she
slams her hand down.
Yeah.
So people were thinking it's going to be the crawl, and then we're going to go boom right into like her training with Luke, and that's how the movie's going to start. And that's not how it started at all. And then I think there was something in the Rise of Skywalker teaser that people had that as that same guess. You know, they were like, "This is going to be the opening shot of the movie. It looks like stars, but it's not really." And none of that happened. And I remember being slightly disappointed in each movie that wasn't the shot. That that those people that had speculated. That
well, I
been
wonder
wrong,
if they did that intentionally in the second and third and third one, because they're like, oh, people thought that was going to be the opening shot. Let's put another starry shot in.
Maybe.
And especially after they speculated with the second one, they were like, we gotta tease them again with the third one.
Yeah.
But doesn't Last Jedi start off with the bombing battle?
Technically, but
no, because Poe flies up and they do the exchange, so it doesn't cut from space.
You see like a ship or two in space, and then it cuts to the planet that the rebel base is on, and you see them evacuating, and then it goes back up to space for the bombing.
Oh, okay. Why would they do that?
There's briefly, I don't remember exactly, but there's briefly a moment on the planet where people are talking or whatever, and then it goes back into space. But yeah, I mean.
But this one cuts. It shows a couple ships, and then we go to Kylo Ren slaughtering people.
And I actually really like the opening of this movie. I remember I don't know if you mentioned it in the last episode, but you have told me before that you think this movie is very quick.
Yes,
or at least the
it's like the first
half or the first.
It's like
quarter.
At least the first 30 minutes is what I was saying. Yeah,
yeah, and it is, and I paid attention to that, and it really does. Go, I mean, especially the Kylo Ren scenes in the beginning. It is very quick. I mean, they don't waste any time, which is kind of nice. But it goes, slaughters the.
I kind of disagree with you, but
okay,
go ahead.
Well, he slaughters the people. He finds the Sith Wayfinder, and then he's immediately at Exegol.
Yes,
and talks to the Emperor, and then it. I forget what it cuts to right after that, but it just seems to be kind of bam, 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 from the get go, And I like some of the shots in that, too. Like, when he first lands on Exegol.
Oh, yeah.
And the camera's real low and kind of goes towards him.
And you have this weird, floating structure.
Yeah.
With, the electricity going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That visually was awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then you get into Poe and Finn and Rey, and it is all kind of very boom, boom, boom. So, but... So I guess you didn't feel like it was super fast this time around, since you said you disagreed.
Oh, no.
Or you disagreed that they wasted time.
I disagreed that I think you said it was a good thing.
They didn't waste any time.
That they...
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
I say it was a good
about
thing.
how fast it was going. But rewatching it, I still felt like it was faster than it probably needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they had much of a choice, because there was a lot of, well, not necessarily. There were a lot of it was action scenes that just didn't have any dialogue or what I felt like any reason for. It was just like we need to have, a spaceship chase here and have firing, so let's just have them hop in a ship and have trouble flying, through landscapes and have a couple ships blow up. And that happened, what it seemed to me like, several times. It didn't seem as fast-paced as... Because this was the second time I watched it.
Yeah.
It didn't seem as fast-paced as the first time, but it still did feel a little fast-paced.
Yeah.
But I was noticing more of the breakup that I didn't notice before, like when... It cuts to Rey for the first time, and she is training with Leia, sort of. She's like, I'm going to run... She says she's going to run the training course.
Yeah.
Like she's Like it's something that she does once a week.
Right. Or once a day even, maybe.
Yeah, but like when she finishes it, I don't remember why, but just the way her mannerisms or whatever, but it felt like that was the first time she had ever done it. So, anyway, before that happens though, I want to go back to Kylo.
Okay.
Going to, is it Exegol?
Exegol, I believe, yeah.
And he meets the Emperor very quickly into the movie. Like, we get the Emperor, which I thought was awesome.
It is interesting that they chose to do that, because in the scroll it says, I forget exactly what the words are, but it does say the dead speak.
Yeah.
And there's a broadcast.
It doesn't even tease, like, after that.
Right. It's like, it's seeming to be from the Emperor himself or something like that. And then Kylo finds him and he's there. Like, the movie definitely doesn't waste any time.
Yeah, it's not like...
The Emperor's still alive.
Yeah. It's like... Yeah, it was very, very quick. And so, yeah, there were a lot of things that did have to be fast-paced. And in the very beginning with Kylo, I can see that, like he's looking for... I don't remember what they call it, but they'll like pyramid...
The Sith Wayfinder.
Yes.
That's what they called it, yeah.
So, they showed that he needed that and explained that pretty well, I think. I don't remember how they did. Did they do it with Rey and Leia, I think?
Yeah, basically it's a map.
Or was it Luke?
Exegol.
No, it wasn't Luke.
No, it wasn't Luke. There's two of them. There's two Sith Wayfinders. Kylo had found one, and they were trying to find the other.
Right.
To get to Exegol. And that was one question I had. I wrote it down. I said, why even make a Sith Wayfinder? Like, why even make a map leading to Exegol? And I thought maybe it's for other Sith to locate the Emperor.
Right.
I didn't really understand why that.
That's a good question.
Why the Sith Wayfinders even existed.
Yeah, I didn't even wonder that. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Oh, Sith Wayfinder. Yeah, of course. So that was a question I had this time around. I was like, why even make that? It's kind of like, it's almost like Force Awakens, where there's a map to Luke Skywalker. It's like, if you don't want to be found, why is there?
Right.
Why does a map even exist?
Yeah, it's a great question.
So I just assume there's hidden Sith out there, and maybe he left Wayfinders around to let the Sith know where he was or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Also, on the topic of Kylo looking for items, and it brings back in the, melted Darth Vader mask.
Yeah.
That's something I was really hoping they were going to touch on that they never did, which was the, special artifacts that I was hoping you could have Darth Vader's helmet have some kind of, with the power that he had, that the mask had some kind of thing that Kylo could use. And also, Rey's staff, I was really wanting to be Plagueis's staff, because apparently Plagueis had a staff. I don't remember where that idea came into my head, but apparently he had a staff, and being that it's not canon anymore, I think at one time it was, but being that Plagueis was Palpatine's master,
I think that's still canon, because in the prequels he mentions...
But he doesn't ever say it was him.
Oh.
And I think in the books before Disney bought, I think they did go into that it was. But that
he never mentions Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis is mentioned in The Last Jedi.
No.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker mentions Plagueis, doesn't he? Or no, does he mention Sidious, Darth Sidious? He mentions Sidious.
I don't think Plagueis...
He mentions somebody from the prequel that had never been mentioned. Or maybe he... I forget who it was. I can't remember if he mentions Darth Plagueis or Darth Sidious, but he...
Oh, you said The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I heard Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, no, not the original trilogy.
Okay.
The last movie.
No, you're right.
Episode 8.
He does. Was it Bane?
From Batman?
No, I'm pretty sure there's a...
I don't remember. I can't remember who he says either.
Well, obviously it wasn't Bane, because that connected with you, Batman, right away, and I think you would have done that if you had heard Luke mention Bane. Maybe it was Plagueis. Sidious is Palpatine.
I actually think he might have said Darth Sidious, but God, I should look it up real quick. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So he mentions Darth Sidious.
He does.
He says at the height of their whatever, he allowed Darth Sidious to create the Empire and wipe them out. So he does talk about Darth Sidious, not Darth Plagueis. I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, in Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine / Sidious talks about Plagueis and talks about how he taught his apprentice. I think he mentions that he taught his apprentice to cheat death.
Cheat death.
He at least mentions that Plagueis learned how to cheat death.
Right.
And I thought he said that he... I don't know if he said but he mentions that I think also the apprentice struck down Plagueis.
The master, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think if I recall, it's been a long time since I've seen Revenge. I haven't watched it since we did the podcast for it. But I think he mentions that whoever the master was, Darth Plagueis, I assume, found out how to cheat death. He taught the apprentice that, and then the apprentice struck him down.
Yes.
So that would mean that the Emperor has learned how to cheat death.
Correct. And seeing as how, even though it's not canon now, I knew that in previous books, it was Palpatine that was the apprentice. And I was like, if you're going to go that route, and this was obviously before Rise of Skywalker came out, I was like, and you have recordings of the Emperor, which, would technically keep his character in the story, even if he's dead. But if you were originally going with he was trained by someone to cheat death, why would you not bring him back? And so I had been rooting for Snoke to be the Emperor or something. And I was going to ask you, and I noticed, and I don't think I noticed the first time I watched it, but when Kylo is going in to Exegol and into the temple or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
there's a glass case, and it looks like there's 2 Snokes in it. Did you see it?
Yeah.
So what's up with that? Is Snoke a clone?
I don't think so. I think at one point in the movie, I don't know what his character's name is, but Charlie from Lost. I'm blanking on the author, on the actor's name.
Dominique.
Yeah. Monaghan, right?
Yeah, something like that. It's such a name. That is correct.
He talks about the Sith learning kind of forbidden science or whatever, and he talks about cloning. And I think I just saw the Snoke bodies in the chamber, and then heard that about cloning, and kind of put the two together. But nowhere in the movie does it say that the Emperor cloned himself and made Snoke. He does say that he made Snoke,
right?
And then we see them in the chamber there, and
right.
So we are just led to assume that he literally created Snoke. Like,
right. Well, I don't know. Like,
made him from nothing or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
Created him in a test tube. I don't know.
Right. But I like to think that maybe Snoke was a malformed clone of the Emperor.
I like that idea too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the movie necessarily says that.
No, I'm not saying it does.
Right.
I just think it could potentially have that going for it.
Right. And you could argue that it is hinted at, since Dominic Monaghan's character does talk about the Sith cloning and learning or whatever.
But you're also right. I think it just as heavily leans on that Snoke was created, like you said, out of a test tube of just whatever. So was I heard Snoke was of a certain race. Is that even?
I have no idea if it's in the movie, because I don't read any of the books. There are some books that I've looked at that I'm like, that would be cool to read, but I just have not yet sat down and read any of the new canon Star Wars books. I read like the novelizations of the original trilogy when I was like in middle school, but that's about as far as it went for me. So just based off the movies, there's no mention of his race or anything like that. So
Right.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Going off the movies, you could argue that he is of no certain race and was just created by Palpatine. But if it's mentioned in a book somewhere or a comic book or something, I have no idea. But the other thing I was going to mention, since you brought up Darth Plagueis, was there was speculation back when Force Awakens first came out that Snoke was Darth Plagueis.
That's right.
That he, because if you go back to Revenge of the Sith and talk about, Palpatine saying that he learned how to cheat death, there was the argument that Plagueis had been kind of hiding in the shadows or building up his strength or whatever to come back in that. And I thought that would have been pretty cool too.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it really would have been.
And you could have also kept the Emperor coming back too.
Sure.
So you have Plagueis trying to basically crawl back to life, and he's like, "You didn't kill me yet."
Yeah.
What's his name? The Palpatine.
Sidious?
Sidious, yeah. You didn't kill me yet, Sidious. And then Sidious is like, "Well, I'm not dead either." and then takes care of Plagueis again.
It's like this two super old half-dead guys like trying to Well, we never saw Emperor Palpatine use a lightsaber, but they're trying to lightning blast each other or something. That would have been interesting.
Does he not use one in the prequels?
I don't remember if he does or not. I don't think he does. I don't recall him ever using one, but I could be wrong.
I can't remember either, and that would have been cool to see.
I know when he attacks Mace Windu in Revenge of the Sith, he's just using the lightning. So I don't think he ever uses a lightsaber.
And he doesn't fight Yoda with one?
Oh, he might. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch Revenge of the Sith. I don't recall.
I would imagine he would have had to have fought Yoda with a lightsaber.
Because Yoda would have had a lightsaber. So it's very possible he did use one in that.
Anyway, let's get off the prequels.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember why Rey and the crew are trying to find the Wayfinder? I mean, they've heard the broadcast from Emperor Palpatine. There's a spy in the First Order who's told them something. Yeah,
I think. Well, it was really Rey that she mentions to Leia. I know. I'm going regardless. I wanted your blessing, but.
It's basically just to confirm if the Emperor is the one behind all this.
No, I think she is pretty sure it's the Emperor, and I think she's going to go kill him.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think.
Before that happens, actually, there's the whole scene in the very beginning. I mean, we haven't even gotten through the first 15 minutes of the movie, probably, where Poe and Finn are on the Millennium Falcon with Chewie, and they are light skipping.
Yes.
And we see TIE fighters kind of light skipping with them. Is that the first time we have seen TIE fighters use light speed?
I think so.
I thought light speeders couldn't use light speed.
Yeah.
I didn't think they had the capability.
And I didn't like that.
I didn't either.
Because in Last Jedi, we find out that was it a Star Destroyer that Hux was... Whatever was chasing them.
Yeah. I think it was.
It was either a Star Destroyer or something similar to one. And
our memory is terrible.
Well, I mean, I'm 36 now, so...
Yeah. It's just going to keep getting worse.
Next year, I'm using a walker. So the whatever ship they were using had gotten the ability to track, the ship through light speed,
right? I remember that.
Could follow them, and then all of a sudden, in this one, like you said, there's
TIE
fighters that are like, yeah, I did not like that.
It was just weird to me. Like I said, I don't think any other movie has had that technology, and suddenly now they can do it, and I just thought it was kind of weird. And also just convenient, so that it would give us that light.
What are you going to do now after, if you're going to continue, Star Wars movies after this time period?
Yeah.
What's the point of light speed now?
Right.
You can't use it to get away. It's just to get to places faster. That's nice, but no more we're gonna jump to light speed, before they kill us, and then they won't be able to find us anymore. Like that's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a note I wrote. I was like, can TIE fighters do that?
Yeah.
It just was weird to me. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that either. And like I said, I think it was just a convenience thing. They wanted to do that light skipping scene, and they needed people to follow them, obviously, in order to do light skipping. But they didn't want it to be a Star Destroyer, so they just used TIE fighters, made the TIE fighters do it. But there wasn't a scene or a line of dialogue or anything that was like, well, they have, their fighters now can light speed. Or there was nothing. It was just like, now they do it. So, yeah. A little weird. Oh, so I'm trying. You haven't told me yet what reminds you of the prequels in this movie, and I'm wondering now. Because I'm going along kind of the movie, and then they go to that planet Kijimi, and there's a big celebration going on in Kijimi. Is that the scene that reminds you of the prequels? It's
the big one, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you not see that?
No, I can. Now that I have thought about it, I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
I do say the one thing I really like about the whole Kijimi scene is that John Williams got a cameo in it, and I believe it's the first Star Wars movie.
John Williams, really? I did not pick up on that.
He plays a bartender on
awesome.
Kijimi, I believe. Yeah, when they're on their way to. So I guess it actually might not be on Kijimi. I wrote it's on Kijimi, but it's when they're going to see Babu Frick, and I think it's on the other planet. Once they get to Babu Frick is the little alien guy who is the droid repair.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's the guy that like hacks into C-3PO.
Gotcha.
Gets the Sith translation out of him. So it's actually on that planet, whatever that planet is. I forget the name of it. But yeah, he plays he's like a bartender. He's got something over one eye, but he's got the beard and everything.
Does he have any lines?
No. He's just they like walk by him or something, and he's like wiping a glass, and he like shakes his head at them or something like that. But it's a close up of him though.
That's cool.
So, yeah, John Williams got a cameo, which I thought was neat because as far as I know, he's never had a cameo in any of the Star Wars movies, so it was cool that they put him in the last one.
But when we were talking about, was it Kijimi?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the planet that had the the celebration. And
I thought you were going to bring up Lando Calrissian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I should have.
Billy D. Williams.
I shouldn't have skipped right over that, but yeah.
Which I thought the introduction of him was extremely forced. But his character is so great.
Yeah.
In the movie, like it was awesome. Like I was happy to see him, and also I remember the first time I watched the movie, I totally called it. Like it was just a guess, but I remember. Like, I don't remember what he saves him or something, and he's got that helmet on, and it just brought me back to Leia.
Yeah.
And kind of the mask he was wearing on Tatooine in
Return.
Yeah. And I was like, I bet that's Lando. And then he took off. So the forced part I'm talking about is when he takes off the helmet. And I don't remember the line he uses, but it was just very much like, hey, it's me, Lando.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it does feel a little forced, but at the same time, I feel the same way you do. Like, I'm super happy he's there.
Yeah.
Especially because they've killed off Han.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish
off Luke.
They had a Han and Lando scene, and same with Han and Luke. Like, we didn't get those.
No, we didn't. You're right.
But we do get Han kind of back in this one more time.
Yeah, at least we got Harrison Ford, I guess. Yeah, but it's a kind of a memory, if you. But yeah, and Luke is back in this one too as a Force ghost,
right?
And
which I think I was distracted at that point, and I think I had to leave. So I didn't even get to rewatch that scene. So I haven't watched that one since the first time I watched it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So kind of remind me of what happens in that.
Well, before I get into the Luke part, I wanted to talk about you were saying Lando was forced, and
just his intro.
Yeah. What and speaking of forced, a lot of the Leia stuff, and I know that obviously Carrie Fisher had passed away before
right.
they even started shooting this movie.
That was something I was going to ask you. Is like it seemed like there was a lot of content that she was in.
Yeah. Some of it, it was supposedly footage that they had shot. I don't know if it was just for Force Awakens or if it was for Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but it was footage that they had shot of her for those movies that they didn't use, deleted scenes or whatever, and they worked it into this movie. And that's what I was going to say. Like, I understand that she wasn't there and they had to do. I mean, because she didn't die in The Last Jedi, so I think it would have sucked if they had just kind of put in there that she died and they didn't, and they just kind of,
Yeah, you can't just write that in the crawl.
Right, exactly. So it works for what they did. I understand there were obviously constraints and whatnot, but all those scenes just feel a little forced to me. It was like they had her dialogue already, so they had to write lines to kind of match her dialogue, and it just doesn't. Those scenes just don't really kind of work that well, in my opinion.
I didn't feel that way. I thought they were fine.
That's good.
But I understand what you're saying as far as them feeling a little forced. But to me, it didn't feel like it was a deleted scenes. We have to have scenes of Leia in here, so let's use this. Like, I legitimately felt like it was stuff that they had filmed before she passed, and it was part of the plan from the get-go.
I would like to see the like behind the scenes on it, because I assume they had to completely replace her background and make it match what they were going to do for this movie. I don't know if that's the case or not. I assume it is. But
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that would be. I'd like to go back now and watch those scenes and kind of see if I pick up on what you're talking about.
And then I don't know for sure, but I would assume that they kind of had a double as well to do a couple of things, because I think like when she passes away in the movie and like her hand falls and you see, I assume that wasn't Carrie Fisher. I assume that was some body double that they got to do kind of the stuff where you don't see her face.
Right, because if she hadn't passed in real life, I think Leia might have survived this movie.
I do too. I think that this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. This is kind of the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, and I guess we can go ahead and get into it, is that I think my biggest issue with this trilogy is that you can really kind of tell that each movie was written. It wasn't written as a trilogy.
You're right.
It was written, The Force Awakens was written, and I don't know why they decided to do this. I don't know why. I mean, originally this movie was supposed to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, who I think was fired. I don't think they split amicably necessarily. I think he was let go, and they brought J.J. Abrams back on. So originally they were like, J.J. Abrams is going to write and direct the first movie. We'll get a different director to direct the second movie, and I guess also a different writer, because Rian Johnson wrote and directed it. And then we'll get a writer-director to do the third movie. And I don't know why they would do that, or why they wouldn't have Abrams or somebody do an overall trilogy story and tell, have the director. Because, that's what Lucas did, essentially, with the first trilogy. He knew what those movies were going to do, and he's got the story credit. And even though somebody else wrote it and directed Empire, and somebody else wrote and directed Return, it was very much his story, I think, and followed his plan. Whereas they didn't have a plan for this trilogy. They did Force Awakens, and then JJ was like, well, I'll let somebody else figure out who Rey is and who Snoke is and whatnot. And
are you sure about that?
I don't know for a fact, but that's just how it seems.
Definitely the way it feels. I agree. And maybe whether it's the way you happened or if they did have a plan, it definitely feels like if they did have a plan that they diverted from that multiple times. And it's like, now we're going to go down this road, and then you've got a fork there, and then they go this way and that, and it just kind of ends up where, like you said, it definitely feels like 3 different pieces are put on top of each other to try to make it a trilogy and fit pieces here and there as best it can.
Exactly. It seems like they're trying to force puzzle pieces in to fit where they don't necessarily fit. And if they did have a trilogy planned out, and they knew if they knew that Rey was going to be the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine,
which is awesome, by the way. I love that.
Why would they let Rian Johnson say that she's a nobody unless he told them, well, you can say in the third one that her parents were nobody, but her grandfather was Palpatine. It just seems weird to me. It seems like this movie is trying to undo some of the stuff that Last Jedi was setting up.
We did talk, though, in The Last Jedi, and I mentioned that, and that I thought that maybe they had Kylo say that her parents were nobody because when Empire came out and Darth Vader said to Luke that he was his father, so many people in the audiences thought that Darth Vader was lying.
Right.
And then it turned out he wasn't. Well, this time, you have the villain do a big reveal, but this time he is lying.
Right.
So I thought maybe that's why they did it. Mm-hmm. And obviously, before Rise of Skywalker came out, you didn't know if he was lying or not.
Right.
I thought he was.
Yeah.
And I also remember thinking that he was because of that scenario where I was like, what if they're trying to use that to their advantage, how people thought Darth Vader was lying, and then they found out he wasn't? Well, now let's have the villain lie.
But he wasn't technically lying. He said
True.
In this movie, he says your parents were nobody. They were
true.
Whoever. But he was like, but your grandfather was the emperor, and they were trying to hide you from him. You think it's awesome that she's a Palpatine. I actually don't like it. I like the Last Jedi version of Rey, where she is nobody, and she is this very powerful Jedi who comes from nobody. And I think it is better that way than having her be the granddaughter of Palpatine.
And that's definitely how Last Jedi was kind of trying to get you to think with the boy at the end. And I remember discussing that and me saying that I liked the lineage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I got it because obviously when the Jedi started and there were Force users, there had to have been people
they had to start somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That being said, though, my favorite scene in the movie, even though I did write a note because I don't totally understand her intentions, I guess you could say. Well, okay, so they're on the planet, they're on Kijimi, and they realize that C-3PO has seen the blade with the Sith writing, he can't translate it, his programming forbids it, and now they're going to go to this other planet where Babu Frick is, where they can maybe do a memory wipe and have it translated. I
liked Poe's reaction to that too. He's like, "Wait a minute, the one time we need you to talk,
you can't." Yeah. Poe's got some good lines in this movie.
He does, and that's something else. That was actually one of my notes. And it's both about Finn and Poe. Mm-hmm. They're both really strong characters, mm-hmm. but they don't. But the movie never uses them. Like, they're strong characters. Like I wrote down, they're strong to support other fan favorites. Like, for instance, you've got Poe and Finn, like, being very heroic, and we need to do this, but it's to go save Chewie.
Right.
So, it's really, their strong character actions are always used as support to characters that we've already established. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I never feel like Finn and Poe, and it was in the previous movies. I think the strongest movie that Poe and Finn had was Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And now Finn towards the end of this movie, he does get some more. But I felt like Poe just he's the leader now of the Resistance, but it just, as far as him just being the one that makes the decisions, there just wasn't really a whole lot. He gets angry at Rey about things, but it just never felt like a lot, that the same depth that Han and Luke and Leia had. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. So they're on the planet. They're on Kijimi. They're about to leave, and Rey senses Kylo. And the note I wrote was I didn't really understand why she kind of walks out there to confront Kylo. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking maybe it's because she knew he was in his kind of TIE fighter ship, and maybe she figured she could disable it so that he wouldn't be able to follow them when they leave on their ship. But she doesn't say anything to anybody. She just says, she says something to Finn like, "Go, I'm right behind you" or something, and then she like wanders off a little bit into the desert. And there's that whole slow motion scene with her jumping over the TIE fighter and hitting it with her lightsaber. But in the meantime, they're waiting on her, and they send Chewie out to go get her, and Chewie gets captured. So if she hadn't taken the time to go out there and do that, they could have maybe escaped together. But Kylo would have maybe been able to follow in his ship, especially if both ships are equipped with lightspeed now, which I assume they are. Well, I don't know about the little ship. I guess it actually probably has lightspeed on it since they were able to go to the other planet where Babu Frick is. But anyway, that is my favorite scene in the movie, is where Finn yells at Rey that Chewie's has been captured and he's on that transport, and she reaches up and stops it. Like that by itself, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But then when Kylo starts pulling on it too, and she has to give more strength, and then she shoots the lightning out of her fingers, I wasn't expecting that. And the first time I saw it, and that was super cool. And that is my favorite scene in the movie.
Did you connect?
I didn't. No, because I don't. I mean, maybe it's because I've played video games where characters can do that. I mean, in the movies, I think Palpatine is the only one that has done that. Right? He's the only one that has ever shot lightning.
I can't think of anyone else.
But I've never. I guess I just never associated him being the only one to do it. I assumed there were other Jedi that could do that. But we just have never, we never saw Luke do it or anything. So I just thought it was cool, but I didn't immediately associate her with Palpatine when I saw that.
Well, I think too, when we were, and this was before Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi, when we did the Force Awakens episode. Maybe we didn't talk about this, but there were a couple things that stood out that when she's fighting Kylo, the music apparently, I remember hearing that it was very similar to the Palpatine music from Revenge of the Sith. I think when he was talking to Anakin about Plagueis, or it was either that or just a scene with Palpatine in general. And the music it's either during the Kylo Rey fight or at some scene with Rey, the music was similar. Mm-hmm. And when she's fighting Kylo in the snow in the woods, so I guess Palpatine does use a lightsaber to fight Yoda, because apparently the fighting style that Palpatine uses with a lightsaber was the same way that Rey was fighting Kylo. So there were like two correlations with Palpatine in Force Awakens.
So if that's true, that makes me think that they did have the Palpatine idea from the get-go, which is interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to. I don't remember what the Palpatine music is from Revenge of the Sith, or what his fighting style was. So I would have to go back and watch Revenge of the Sith, and then watch Force Awakens, or at least those scenes from both movies. I'm sure there's, if that's accurate, if what you said is true, I'm sure there's a YouTube video comparing the two fights somewhere out there.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look that up. But yeah, that scene just, I thought was really cool. And like I said, I wasn't expecting to see her shoot lightning out of her hands. But I also knew they didn't just kill off Chewie like that. Like, you're not going to kill off Chewbacca.
Right. and an exploding ship where you
Yeah,
don't even
where you don't even
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, he ain't dead. So then, like, when it cuts to, I forget what they say, like, there's a prisoner or something, and he's like, prisoner, and it cuts to Chewbacca. It's supposed to be like this reveal. You're like, no, of course. I don't think anybody was shocked by Chewbacca still being alive.
Right. That is close to around the time you find out Hux is the traitor.
Which I loved.
Did you?
Yes. Because...
Yeah, tell me, please.
His motivation, right? When you find out he's the traitor, you're like, okay, that's a little weird, because he is such a bad... Like,
That's my point.
He's like a super bad guy in the first couple of movies. Very evil. Wants to be like Snoke's teacher's pet kind of thing. But his motivation for being the spy, I thought, was perfect. He flat out says, I don't care if you win. I just don't want Kylo Ren to... I don't care if you win. I just need Kylo Ren to lose. That's what he says. And I love that he hates Kylo Ren so much.
Okay, I missed that.
Oh, you didn't hear that?
I did not... It seems
you didn't
like...
pick up on it?
When you say that, I didn't pick up on it this viewing, but the first time I did. And you're right. That is passable. So forget what I said.
He asks Finn to shoot him, because otherwise it's going to look too easy. So Finn shoots him in the leg, and then he says, why are you helping us? And he says, I don't care if you win. He goes, I just need Kylo Ren to lose.
Right.
And I love that. I just love the fact that... Because Kylo Ren has been beaten up on this guy for the last 2 movies.
Right.
And so I love the fact that he hates Kylo Ren so much that he's willing to help the other team.
Well, that's not the only reason he hates him, too, because in Force Awakens, they were kind of on even ground, Like Snoke... Yes, Kylo had Force abilities, and Hux had, military abilities.
Right.
But Hux was just jealous of Kylo because, he won. But you're right. As the movie goes on, Kylo starts, he's like, hey, I'm the big dog here. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Oh, I think they've always had a rivalry.
Yes, they did.
And then once Snoke is killed off, Kylo definitely takes the reins, and when Hux tries to stand his ground, Kylo throws him into the wall and everything. Yeah,
it's very quick, because then you have a scene in this movie. Remember where
puts the mask back on. And...
Yeah. Well, by the way, what did you think of the mask?
Well, that's another thing where it felt to me. I like Kylo Ren's mask, and it looks cool in this movie with kind of being welded back together. But it felt like another thing where J.J. Abrams didn't necessarily like what Rian Johnson did.
I agree.
And he was like, why'd you get rid of my mask? And so he made the mask come back.
Right. He's like, oh, yeah, you're going to try to take my mask? Guess who's directing now?
Guess what? The mask is coming back.
But I liked the way it looked.
I do, too. I like it.
It has a cheese factor to it.
A little bit,
but it looks cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so I don't hate the fact that it came back, but I can't help but think that when I see it, especially the first time, is J.J. Abrams was just like, I want my mask back. So he brought the mask back.
Did you also notice how well it was put together? There are literally pieces that are smaller than a dime that they happen to salvage, and they happen to find exactly so.
Yeah. Again, it's like Rian Johnson, it seems to me, clearly was like, he's moving on from the mask. He's smashing the mask to bits. Kylo Ren no longer wears a mask. And J.J. Abrams came back and he was like, but I like the mask. And he...
Who collected the broken mask anyway?
I don't know.
He smashes in the elevator and he leaves, and then another guy goes and goes, his mask is broken.
You should probably keep that.
Let's pick it up and make sure we put it all together and put it in a bag for him in case he wants it back.
I actually like the idea of a janitor sweeping it up and putting it into the trash receptacle. I assume that you remember the trash thing in A New Hope where they're all, it's in that water crap. And Kylo Ren comes back later and he's like, what happened to my mask? And he's like, I threw it away. And Kylo makes him go down there and collect all the pieces out of the trash water.
I want every piece.
I need it. And then Kylo's in his I don't know, his bedroom putting it together, and he's missing a piece. He has to go back and yell at the guy to go find this missing piece. I like that idea.
Yeah.
One of the notes I wrote, I don't remember what scene this has to do with, but it's obviously a scene with Finn and Finn and Poe, I believe, shooting at stormtroopers. And I said they should have made Finn a bad shot since he used to be a stormtrooper. Because all stormtroopers are bad shots, right? That's kind of like the running joke.
Hey,
and
they
then
they actually hit some people in this one.
They do.
They hit
so,
Poe.
That's true.
Like I remember there was a stormtrooper shootout, and I don't think about it too much. I just watch the movie as it comes, but it popped in my head. You know, I'm like, oh, here we go. Stormtroopers missing all the time. And then, like, about 3 shots later, Poe gets shot in the leg, and I was like, oh, maybe they're not so bad.
Maybe they've gotten some better training.
Better.
Well, I just thought it would have been funny if Poe, if Finn, every time he was shooting, like, just completely missed, like, by a mile. And I thought maybe that's also why Captain Phasma was defeated so easily, because she's like the head of the stormtroopers, and all the stormtroopers suck.
She's the worst shot out of all of them.
Exactly. But then I was like, then Finn shouldn't have been the one to be able to defeat her, because he was presumably trained by her, by people under her or something. But anyway, I think it must have been a scene where like Finn was shooting at somebody and shot a couple people, you know, with the first shot, knocked them down. And I was like, they should have made Finn, just to be funny. I think it would have been better if Finn had just been a terrible shot. And like Poe comments on it, and he's like, "Can you hit anything?"
Were you this bad when you were a stormtrooper?
Right. What are you talking about? He thinks he's doing a great job too, or something. What are you talking about?
He's like, I was first in my class.
That'd have been really good. Most of my notes I think are for kind of towards the end of the movie. So,
well, I have a quick note about Rey healing the snake.
Oh yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cheesy, but I'm not going to go into that. But
yeah, and it occurred to me, I always kind of think it's a little cheesy too, and then I realized the reason they do that is so that when she does it to Kylo at the end of the movie, you're not kind of
to me,
the
cheesiness was like you have a predator animal,
right,
and it's hissing at you, but then she heals it, and it's like, okay, you're fine. I'm not going to kill you, and then right. Like no, I'm sorry.
Instead of it being like, well, now I'm at perfect health, and I can eat you much easier.
Right. But my note was, if the Force can heal body parts back to complete, capacity or whatever, why didn't Luke just grow his hand back in Empire when it gets chopped off?
I assume you can only, because she says she transfers like life energy from her to the animal.
Yeah.
So I assume you couldn't transfer life energy from you to your arm. So I assume it can only be done from like you to another person.
Well, why didn't Leia? Well, Leia wasn't.
Leia didn't.
At some point, someone could have grown Luke's hand back. He still has that mechanical hand.
He could have trained before Kylo Ren turned on him, or before he turned on Kylo, I guess you could say. He could have trained Kylo how to do it.
He's like, you know what? I'm not going to charge you.
Grow my hand back.
I'm not going to charge you for your schooling. But can you please get my hand back? Just a little bit of some kind of payment. Thank you.
I love the idea of Jedi training, or Jedi charging for training. Like, there's probably so many Jedi out there who would be like the world's greatest, or the galaxy's greatest Jedi, if they could only afford Jedi school. But instead they're, working on what was Owen Lars's like farm? What did he farm? Because I remember he was talking about like harvest season, and Luke needed Luke for harvest season.
What even brought that up?
I was trying to think. I was going to say there's Jedi out there who never became the galaxy's greatest Jedi, and they're stuck being blank farmers. And I couldn't think of what it was that Owen Lars farmed. I was going to say like blue milk dairy farmers or something, but I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That was another thing I thought of though. And this is related to this movie, but it's the very end. when Owen and his wife took Luke to raise as I guess they didn't raise him as their son. They raised him as their nephew.
Right.
But obviously they're, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, I think Obi-Wan gives them Luke to raise so that way Darth doesn't know that his kids are out there, right?
Yes.
Like they're hiding him from Darth Vader,
Correct.
Essentially. So if they are hiding this child, why did they let him keep the name Skywalker? Why wouldn't they give him...
Right.
Why wouldn't they essentially adopt him and give him the name Luke Lars?
Yeah, because they did that with Leia. Leia didn't have the last
Leia
name.
or Organa. Right, yeah, exactly. So Owen was just dumb. He was like...
Ben keeps going back, and he's like, did you change his name yet, or are you still calling him Skywalker? Because Ben is right, he's...
Right, he's down the street, basically.
He's like, no, I'm calling him Skywalker.
You can't tell me what to do, Ben. He's not my kid.
You're some crazy old hermit anyway.
His father is Anakin Skywalker, who has become Darth Vader, the worst. He's not the worst, I guess. Emperor would be the worst, but he's this horrible person. You need to change his name. I'll get around to it. Then it becomes too late. He knows his name is Luke Skywalker. Anyway, the reason I thought of that is because the very end of the movie, not to skip ahead so much, but Rey she visits Luke's old stomping grounds in Tatooine, sees, where Owen and Luke, and I forget what his aunt's name is, but she sees that kind of scene from A New Hope, that whole where they, where he grew up or whatever. And that woman sees her and she's like, "Who are you?" And she says her name is Rey, and she goes, "Rey who?" And she sees Luke and Leia's Force ghosts, and she says, "Rey Skywalker," and that's how the movie ends.
Right.
And it just kind of occurred to me this time watching it. I was like, why did they let him keep the name Skywalker? Or why did they
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a plot hole. I can't enjoy Star Wars anymore. So no. Anyway, what did you think about that scene? Just to skip to the end.
Her picking Skywalker?
Yeah. Did you feel like that was cheesy, or were you cool with it?
I liked it when I first saw it.
Yeah.
And then someone made a comment to me about it, and they were like, "Oh, so she just gets to pick what her last name is?" And I was like, you got a point. What makes her she's not a Skywalker.
Right.
And so yeah, when it comes down to it, I don't like it.
I'm kind of
but it doesn't ruin.
No, it doesn't ruin the movie.
I'm not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that.
Right.
But I'm like, it would have been. It just seems like it doesn't fit.
Right.
But then again, it does show her kind of looking at. Now, do you think that was a Force ghost to Leia? Was it, or was it memory?
I have always assumed it was a Force ghost, but it very well could be a memory. I mean, they're looking at her, they're smiling at her.
I'm sure it was Force ghost.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how it looked. Yeah, it was kind of the blue, opaque, right?
I think so, yeah.
And, technically they were the closest things. Of course, Han was, too.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue Finn and Poe, and they're all her family, too, but they're the closest thing that she had to parents. Perhaps.
Right. And with Luke training her, Luke had more time with her.
Yeah.
So it's not terrible. She definitely didn't want to be called, Palpatine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. She could have just been like, just Rey. I'm still just Rey. But so, on one hand, I know why I understand it. They're kind of keeping the Skywalker name alive and everything.
And technically, you could argue that she was going to end up with Ben. But he was a Solo.
That's true. He was a Solo. But he had that, yeah. Yeah, like you said, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I don't love it, but I don't also. It doesn't ruin the movie or anything for me. So yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah, same here. Speaking of Luke, this was a question I had for you. So I know you said you kind of missed this scene, but she goes back to Octu, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the planet
that she trains on.
Yeah, that Luke had been hiding out on. She goes back there in Kylo's ship, and she sets Kylo's ship like on fire, and she's throwing rocks at it or something. I don't know. And then she decides to throw her lightsaber into the fire. She takes it and she throws it, and Luke's Force Ghost catches the lightsaber, and then he walks it back to her, and he's like, a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect than this. And my question is that the first time we've seen a Force Ghost actually physically touch something in the human realm, I guess you could say?
No, because I believe Obi-Wan sits on a rock or a log.
That's true. He does do that in Return of the Jedi, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he's like answering Luke's question about if... No, it was Yoda that answered that question, but... Oh, no. So, yeah, when Luke was like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
It was that
about
whole
his father.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure right. Obi-Wan was sitting on something during that.
Again, it's not something that I was like, no, this movie's wrong. You know, it wasn't like, it like didn't take away my enjoyment from the film or anything. I was just seeing him catch the lightsaber. I was like, can he do that?
It also makes you ask the question, well, if they can have that much influence physically on the world, like, why aren't they doing other things?
Yeah, why don't they just stick around and like help fight or whatever? Right. You know what I mean? If they can hold a lightsaber, they can wield a lightsaber, and so they could fight.
And they can't
Sith.
die.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So that makes them pretty formidable. Yeah, so I wasn't sure, but that's a great point. Actually, now that you put it that way, it makes me think like he shouldn't be able to catch the lightsaber and do that.
Right.
But I assume maybe it's like, you know, Yoda was able to use the Force as a Force ghost in The Last Jedi and set that tree on fire. So maybe he's not literally gripping it. Maybe he's just he's stopped it with the Force, and it looks
I
like
thought
he's
that
holding
too.
it.
But even then, they would still be able to wield a lightsaber.
They would, and they would be. Yeah. But maybe once you die, you're like, well, my job is done. I have no obligation to help you anymore, even though I am gonna.
Yeah, they still come
show up occasionally and give you advice and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And then not only does he catch the lightsaber, but he also lifts the X-Wing out of the water.
That's right.
So that she can fly.
By the way, you mentioned Rey stopping the ship.
Yeah.
Which she's extremely powerful to be able to do that at this point.
Yes.
But I meant to mention this in Last Jedi, and I remember when we found out Luke was coming back. Like, obviously we knew he was coming back, but that, you know, this was going to be his movie.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him use the Force that we never saw. And technically Palpatine kind of does it in this one.
Yes.
But I wanted to see, like, Luke, like, there'd be, like, a moon in the distance, and, like, Luke just, like, break it into pieces, and, like, have the pieces of the moon, like, falling on the planet. Like, I wanted...
Something so powerful that we haven't
that you're
ever
like,
seen before.
like, wow. Like, Luke is the most powerful Jedi, you know, there's ever been. We didn't get that. So, I just...
Yeah, I mean, technically we saw something that we've never seen somebody do with the Force before, which is project himself onto another planet.
Right.
But it wasn't... It's not the same wow factor as what you're talking about.
Or could you imagine if, like, you know, like... Because if I'm not mistaken, remember the AT-ATs? Weren't they kind of, like, in a line?
Yeah.
Like, even though it wouldn't have been as cool as crushing a moon, like, he could have taken one of them and done a domino effect on them.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Actually, that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I know what you're referring to. The thing with the Emperor in this movie, what we had never seen before, was when he shoots like the lightning up into the sky and it's
No,
like hitting all.
actually,
Oh, you're not thinking about that?
No, but that was awesome. I really liked that.
That was really cool.
I'm talking about when he raised like the entire fleet of Star Destroyers. Like that's pretty powerful too.
Which, by the way, that was a note of mine. That's the very beginning of the movie, and I thought, did he just have all these Star Destroyers just like they were just like in storage, like they were just waiting around?
Well, it's all wreckage from the battles.
1,000 Star Destroyers just lying around.
Yeah,
I guess so. Maybe he had it all, delivered to Exegol.
Right, like that's a lot of destroyed Star Destroyers. So if they were all destroyed in the first place, what makes him think that this time they're all going to, like, obviously he didn't have
he did equip them. Yeah, he has a ton of them. And apparently he equipped them all with, like, Star Destroyer technology where they can destroy planets.
Right.
So they do have better weapons this time around.
Right.
It just seemed kind of crazy to me that he had so many on Exegol just
and
waiting to go.
And why was this the moment to rise them? You know, have them to have them.
Other than the fact that it's the last movie, right?
So I mean, and when Rey's there, you know, he's like, "Oh, you finally showed up. Look at my army.
Look at these Star Destroyers." Yeah.
I
think he raises them in the very beginning of the movie. I mean, he raises them when Kylo comes and sees them, and he talks about his final order, and that's when the
you're right. It was.
It's like right at the beginning of the movie.
You're right. Okay.
That was another note I wrote. So we talked about the Emperor, we talked about Luke being able to project himself onto another planet. In The Last Jedi, Kylo and Rey are connected because of Snoke. Snoke says that he is the one that has been connecting them, so that they can like communicate on different worlds. They just seem to do it on their own in this movie. Kylo like reaches out and talks to Rey, and there's no.
Well, technically, you could argue that it was the Emperor the whole time.
If he's doing it, I never got the impression that he was doing it.
You're correct. It does.
I wrote that down somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, because Kylo, his whole thing for the first half of the movie or more is he wants to kill the Emperor and he wants to rule the galaxy with Rey by his side. And so I don't really understand why the Emperor would connect them if he knew of Kylo's intentions. Unless he convinced the Emperor, which I think maybe he did, that Rey was going to turn. And so maybe the Emperor is giving them that power or something. I don't know. But
you're right, it doesn't go into that at all.
No.
And it treats it as if in Last Jedi that's what had been happening the whole time, was that Snoke wasn't doing it, that it was just this connection that they had that happened.
Kylo and Rey had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
There's a couple of questions I have like that in this movie. Like another one that I had that it's not stuff I thought about the first 2 times I watched it, really. It's just stuff I kind of thought about this time watching it. But the planet they go to find the other Wayfinder that has the ruined Star Destroyer on it.
Yes.
Or Death Star, I'm sorry. The ruined Death Star.
Correct. Which was cool to see.
Very cool. I liked the design of it in the water and all that stuff, and I liked all of it. My question, though, is wasn't the Death Star in Return of the Jedi completely destroyed? Like, wasn't it completely blown up?
Yeah.
I mean, when you see like, Lando's flying the Millennium Falcon trying to get out of the explosion. I mean, I'm pretty sure the explosion you see of the Death Star is, like, that whole Death Star explodes.
Well, it does.
Left.
It does in A New Hope. That's the way it explodes in A New Hope, and I can't remember if it does that in.
Pretty sure it's similar, if not the same.
I think you're probably right. So
again, it was one of those things where there really shouldn't be any wreckage for them to go to, and you shouldn't be able to see the Emperor's kind of throne room that he had.
Unless,
even though it was super cool.
Unless it doesn't get destroyed, and we're just like, because I can't remember for sure. It seems like I'm leaning more towards
yes,
but I don't know.
I'm fairly confident that it does.
Yeah,
but,
if it does, obviously, then yeah, I know where you're going with that,
yeah.
and it shouldn't be there.
Right. But again, it looks super cool, and I do like seeing her, even though it doesn't have the same... It would have been cooler if, like, Luke was the one walking through it or something, because she wasn't there for that whole fight between Darth Vader and the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, so that room really means nothing to her.
Right.
It's just... It's
she's
cool
had
for us as the
she's had visions of it,
right,
but...
yeah.
But yeah, even then, it means nothing to her.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Man, can you imagine if we had gotten to see Luke walking through that? Oh, man.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah. I hate the blade.
Oh, yeah. The map, essentially?
Yeah, that she holds up. Like, she happened... I mean, was there a reason she was standing there? Like, in that exact spot, or did she, like I've perceived both times I watched it, she just happens to be standing there and she holds up and it's like exactly where she's supposed to be standing and to hold up, like...
No, I don't think she doesn't even realize that that is what it is until
she's like, wait a minute. Yeah.
And then it's perfectly, yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Hated that.
I think it would have been better if it was just they got the information from C-3PO and
I mean,
it had like coordinates or something on
exactly. I was going to say, it's a cool idea, but for her to just walk up and they're like, oh, look, it's the Death Star. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me hold my knife up. It fits. Like, that was dumb.
Right. One of the other scenes I wanted to mention was there's two big scenes in my mind that I want to bring up, and one of them is... So Kylo, well, I guess there's three, because Kylo has the memory of Han.
Mm-hmm.
He feels that that Leia has died, right? Because she, like, the whole idea was like she was using the last bit of her kind of life energy to reach out to her son and help him in some way or whatever. So he knows that she's died, and he has this vision of his father coming to him, and I really like that scene, actually, of Han Solo talking to him and saying, Kylo is dead, Ben still lives, or whatever, and Ben's whole kind of redemption. I think that scene's pretty cool.
Yes. Except why does he get rid of his weapon? It's like...
I guess that's him throwing away...
I know. It's like, I mean? Right, it's symbolic and everything, but you threw away your lightsaber.
Yeah, which would have come in handy in the next scene, basically, where you're breaking into Exegol.
Yeah. But
that's the scene that I want to talk about, is him going into Exegol and fighting the Knights of Ren, I think. I believe it's his buddies, essentially.
Right. Which... I felt like they just threw in there because they had the Knights of Ren in the previous movies that they were going to do something with.
They like hinted at the Knights of Ren. And like, oh, well, we have to do something now.
I think there was obviously something that was supposed to be so much bigger and more intricate than what it was, and it kind of turned into a Phasma.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of situation.
Again, it's one of those things, like, if they had mapped out the trilogy, if they did, they obviously, somebody took, I don't want to put all the blame on Rian Johnson, because I actually really like The Last Jedi, but if they mapped out the trilogy, either J.J. Abrams should have gone with what Rian Johnson was setting up, or they should have had somebody to do the second movie who would have followed the script, you know what I mean? But I honestly don't think they did that. I mean, you may be right about the Emperor Palpatine stuff. Like, maybe they did know that she was going to be a Palpatine. But I can't help but think about the TV show Lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
J.J. Abrams. Right. J.J. Abrams was a co-creator on that show. He directed like the first episode or first couple episodes or something. And I know from watching that show and listening to interviews with the creators, or maybe I watched like an episode with commentary or something, they didn't know what they were doing with that show. They had no plan for that show. They just, that first episode especially, they threw stuff in there because they wanted it to be unexpected and for you to be like, I need to know what that's about, but they had no idea what they were going to do with it. And I feel like that's what they did with The Force Awakens. They set a bunch of stuff up, or at least J.J. Abrams did, and then was like, I don't know where this is going, and there's going to be 2 other directors, let them figure it out.
And I don't know if you told me this or not, but I also remember hearing that J.J. Abrams, wasn't a part of the continuation of Lost. Like,
right? No, I don't think he was.
Yeah, he eventually walked away and let other people just do whatever they wanted to with it.
Right. I believe the showrunners were Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, who were the 3 creators of the show. Were J.J. Abrams, Damon Lindelof, and Carlton Cuse. I think those were the 3 guys. J.J. Abrams kind of did the first. Like I said, he did the first few episodes. Maybe he was there for the first couple of seasons or something. But yeah, he wasn't really involved with the later seasons and stuff. So he basically set up a bunch of mysteries and let other people figure it out, which is what it feels like he did with this trilogy. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe he had the whole idea for her to be a Palpatine setup and everything. I don't know. And maybe he did that and told John Williams to play the music and stuff. And maybe he told the choreographer to kind of follow the Palpatine stuff without really telling anybody else. Maybe he had it in his brain what he was going to do, but
right.
he didn't tell anybody else. I don't know why you would do that. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, apparently George Lucas didn't even tell Mark Hamill, if I'm not mistaken, what Darth Vader was saying to him.
I believe he told Mark Hamill on set, right before they shot the scene, what the line was actually going to be. But nobody, the director and George Lucas and Mark Hamill were the only people that knew.
I thought he just told Mark Hamill to react.
As if this was the line?
No, he told him how to react, but he didn't know what the line was, and I thought Mark Hamill didn't have an understanding of why he was so angry, and I could be wrong. I
could be wrong too, but I'm pretty sure that the director and George Lucas knew the real line, and right before shooting, they told Mark Hamill what it was, and they basically told him, we'll murder you if you tell anybody what this is. And so they had David Prowse, I think is his name, right? That's who played Darth Vader on set. Is that his name?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, they had him say the line, Obi-Wan killed your father, but then they had Mark Hamill reacting to it, knowing what the actual line was going to be. I think that's how it went. But like I said, I could be wrong as well. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't even remember what I was talking about when I brought up all the Lost stuff and everything. But, the scene with Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. Because, like you said, the Knights of Ren felt very throwaway in this movie, and
yes,
and it's unfortunate. So the scene with him fighting the Knights of Ren, and they've established in this movie that when Kylo and Rey are connected, they can essentially transport items.
That's right.
And so she basically gives him a lightsaber to use in the fight, which I really liked. I thought that was cool. I mean, the fact that they kind of set that up and did it, it makes no sense to me, really, because like we said before, Snoke was the one connecting him in the previous movie. But I like it, and I think the fight scene is cool and everything.
I agree. I think when he reaches back and pulls out the lightsaber, that was a pretty epic moment.
Yeah, I agree. However, when the movie came out in theaters, it looked like it was pirated, somebody had shot it with their phone or something. But somebody posted that scene on, I think it must have been Instagram, I saw it. And they put it to the music, I Need a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
So now I can't watch that fight scene without hearing that music in my brain. And it works so well.
Does it?
It does, but at the same time, it kind of ruins the scene a little bit. But it worked. I laughed really hard when I saw that video the first time. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But yeah, watching it now, I'm watching the scene. And I'm like, I need a hero. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I really enjoy that scene, and like you said, it's a very epic moment, and I like his reaction. He kind of shrugs. He's like, yeah, I have a lightsaber now.
Yeah.
You're all gonna die. So that was pretty cool.
Now that was Leia's lightsaber, correct?
I believe it was. That was the thing that I wish they had done. Like, so Rey had been using a blue lightsaber for the last couple. I guess it was Anakin's lightsaber, right? Wasn't it, or something like that? I forget whose lightsaber it was exactly, but she'd been using a blue lightsaber.
Yeah, wasn't it Luke's, which from the original two, or not?
Right, which would have been Anakin's, right?
Right,
like it was given to him by Obi-Wan, so it was. I'm pretty sure it was blue.
Yes.
And then Leia's was blue, and I kind of almost wish that it was cool that we got to see Leia's lightsaber number 1. And it was cool that it was kind of handed down to Rey. But I almost wish that we had gotten Luke's old lightsaber, the green one, that we saw him training Leia with in that flashback scene. But
yeah, whatever. Wait. Did he... So, he doesn't lose that in Return of the Jedi, does he?
I don't think so.
So, whatever happened to that lightsaber? Like, I
don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Guess he threw it in the ocean.
Maybe the X-Wing.
And that one, he actually got it in the ocean.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But
wait a minute. He's using that lightsaber in Last Jedi in the memory. When he tries to initially kill Ben.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So maybe he lost it then or something?
Maybe.
I don't know. It's just a nitpicky thing, because she was using a blue lightsaber, then she gets another lightsaber, and it's also blue. It would have been nice if it was just a different color. Well,
don't forget they're twins. Luke and Leia are twins, so it's kind of cool.
Well, Luke's lightsaber technically was green. He was using Anakin's lightsaber.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
So it would have been, just to differentiate, it would have been nice if it had been a different color. Because I don't actually remember if Kylo gets Leia's saber or if she sent him Anakin's saber.
Yeah, to me, it really threw me off this time, because I was like, why are they... Because does it show her getting Leia's lightsaber?
Luke gives it to her. It's when she's on the island talking to Luke's Force Ghost.
That's the part that I missed.
Yeah, you missed it.
Okay.
It's in it was in a hidden space in his little igloo room, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And he gives it to her. She takes it with him. And that's when you see the little flashback scene of him training Leia. And he's using the green saber in that flashback scene.
And I didn't see that either, but I remember it from my first viewing, yeah. And I remember liking that scene. I wish I had seen it again.
Yeah, I like that scene too. It was pretty cool.
Okay. So obviously in the end, Rey has her own lightsaber, which you assume she constructed, and it's yellow. Yeah.
Well, I thought that was her staff. I thought it was she had her staff the whole time, and her staff turned out to be a lightsaber.
I always was expecting her staff to be something like I said, either Plagueis' staff, which it was a staff of some kind of magical, relic or something, or a double-bladed lightsaber like Darth Maul.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about that at the end, thinking that maybe that was her staff. That's interesting.
I'm pretty sure it is, and if it is, I don't know how I feel about it, because you would think she would have figured that out a long time ago.
Right.
But at the same time, it's kind of cool. I like it being yellow. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. But now there's now all the colors have been used. No, I think all of them have, because I think there was an orange lightsaber in Attack of the Clones. I could be wrong.
There might have been. There's a lot of Jedi in
yeah,
prequels,
exactly.
So.
But now we've had blue, red, yellow, which are the primary colors, and then obviously Luke in Return had green, and Mace Windu had purple.
Right.
So orange, if it was not in Attack of the Clones, is the only color left.
Gotcha.
I guess you got pink, but
right.
you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Maroon.
Now there is a black lightsaber.
Is there?
In the an animated series. I think it belonged to a Mandalorian.
Interesting.
Yeah, that Obi-Wan was possibly in love with, and this was before Rise, and it might have been before Last Jedi, and that there was speculation that Rey
That's why.
might
That's
have,
cool.
yeah, and that would have been cool too. But anyway,
That's kind of part of the reason why I don't like Rey being a Palpatine is because, we've never seen Palpatine with like a love interest.
right?
And so the idea that,
Yeah, how did this happen?
yeah, I mean, I guess you could have said like maybe when he was Senator Palpatine, he had kids and we just never saw the kids.
Well, there's other options too.
Well, that is very true. But it's weird to think about him after because in Return of the Jedi, or I'm sorry, in Revenge of the Sith, we see him using the Force lightning and it kind of gets back on him, and that's when he turns into the old, creepy looking Emperor.
Right.
I can't imagine him having a romantic relationship with anybody at that point. But what do I know? But like you said, there are other ways to do that. So,
and when we're talking about the black lightsaber, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was referenced in Rogue One.
Maybe it was. I don't remember that, but maybe it was.
Anyway,
I'm sure there's still a lot of we never talked about some of the newer characters in this movie. We didn't talk about Kerry Russell's character. Her character's name was Zori, and we didn't talk about General Pride. He's one of the new First Order characters.
Do you think?
And then,
do you think they were alluding that Zori was related to Lando? Because I do.
That's not Zori. You're thinking of. I'm trying to find her.
Oh, who's Zori?
I
Oh,
know
the girl
Janna.
that. Okay.
Janna is her name.
Yeah, Zori was the girl with the helmet, right?
Yeah, she was
Okay.
Poe's past, if you will. And that was one thing that I actually liked about this movie was, one of the things we talked about in Last Jedi was how we didn't really know much about Poe. One of the complaints we had about the film was that like we didn't really care about the characters, and I thought that it was because we didn't really know much about them. We never got like those kind of sit down, learn about the character moments. And in this movie, we got a glimpse of that, at least with Poe and his past and how he used to be a spice runner and he used to run with this crew. And I liked that. I thought that was kind of cool. And he had this almost relationship with Zori.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that scene. And because I was talking about earlier how Finn and Poe were kind of strong characters for other already established strong characters.
Yeah.
And I still feel that way, but you're right. There was a little bit more Poe's time, and yeah, I agree. I liked that, and I liked her, and liked the tension there, and
yeah, I like that too.
Yeah,
and I like Babu Frick, the character who
yeah, he had a line. I don't remember what it was, but it was funny. I think it was about the memory wiping.
Yeah. I just like that character. He was a cool addition to this movie. But then that we had Janna, who was the ex-stormtrooper, who she talks to Lando at the end of the movie, and the first time I saw the movie, I was very worried that they were going to be like, I had a granddaughter who was, from this planet or something, and they didn't go that way, and I thought that was good.
Well, I mean, you're right, they didn't, but I think they did without doing it.
I like to think that she has no relation to Lando, and he's just being nice. But I can see how you could read it the other way.
Yeah, to me, I took it as, oh, you don't know where you're from? Well, let's find out together because I'm
your father. Right? Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I didn't like about this movie as much was Rose didn't have like anything to do. It seemed kind of clear.
Yeah,
it seemed clear to me that like Rian Johnson introduced Rose, and JJ just didn't know what to do with her, and so
there's so much that they had to put in this movie.
That's true. Too. That's very true. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't in charge of trying to figure out this movie.
Yeah.
So I don't envy him by any means, and he did, whatever. But also like Rian Johnson seemed to set up kind of a romantic interest
Right.
in Rose with Finn. And they just completely ignored that for this movie, and they introduced Jannah and had kind of her be the romantic interest for Finn in this movie.
Yeah, it's like because originally in Abrams' first, it was like Finn liked Rey.
Yeah, yeah.
And he also kind of has that too, because he's like, Rey, I never told you.
Right.
What
do you think in those scenes that he's going to tell her that he loves her, or do you think he's going to tell her something else?
I think he was going to tell her he loves her, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like, but
yeah,
I also think that he was maybe going to tell her that he thinks that he could use the Force. Because throughout this whole movie, he keeps having like feelings. And it's very kind of hinted that he's got.
Well, that's something that I was
sensitive.
Yeah, that's something I was expecting all three of them to have by the end. Like, why Poe was such an amazing pilot,
right?
And Finn, I expected all of them to end up being Force sensitive, and maybe they were, but
I actually think I would have liked that better. Actually, if they had hinted stronger that Poe was a little Force sensitive as well.
Yeah,
it would have been kind of cool.
Because if he's not, then he's like as good of a pilot as Luke, but doesn't have the Force.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea that Luke, that people can only be that talented at flying, a spaceship because they've got
the Force.
Yeah, because they've got that extra ability.
Yeah. My last note has to do with the scene where Rey is semi-conscious after being kind of attacked by the Emperor in Exegol. Her and Kylo both had been kind of shot with lightning, or their life force had kind of been sucked out of them. And she hears all the voices of the Jedi, and we get, we hear Ewan McGregor, we hear Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu, we hear Hayden Christensen, we hear Liam Neeson, which I thought was really super cool.
Yeah.
I like that scene a lot. However, I think it would have been a lot cooler if we could have actually seen all those people. Like, it would have been a lot cooler if they had all shown up as Force ghosts kind of around her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can also see how that would have been cheesy.
Yeah, and I know what they were doing, because Luke tells her that the Jedi, the history of the Jedi and everything are living within her now. So it was kind of like she was hearing the voices within her.
Right.
Telling her to get up and everything. So I understand why they did it, but at the same time, I just like, how cool would it have been to see Qui-Gon Jinn show up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would have been super cool.
If they could have shot it right, because it could have been done and cool as well. And if they had been able to do that correctly, that would have been awesome. I would have been fine seeing Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, me too.
There with them.
We've been recording for a very long time, so I think that I'm sure there's probably more we could talk about this movie, but I think it's a good place to kind of wrap up. So I'll start with my rating. I usually ask you what yours is, but I think for me, I'm just going to go and say I'm leaning towards 3 stars for this movie. It's out of the trilogy, I think it's my least favorite. But that being said, I don't dislike the movie by any means. I actually can sit down and watch it and enjoy it. I think it's a fun film. I just do wish there was some more cohesiveness between all 3 movies. I wish that they didn't feel kind of disconnected like they do. That the trilogy, like I said, I wish that it had kind of mapped it out a little better, perhaps beforehand. And also, that being said, I know they've interviewed George Lucas. And he said that, he had an idea, obviously, for 7, 8, and 9. I remember even before the prequels came out, he had talked about how it was a 9-episode saga. But that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams did not use his ideas at all for this trilogy. And so I would really like to know what Lucas's plans were for the movie. And I'm sure maybe it's out there somewhere, and I just don't know, but it would be nice. I know he sold Lucasfilm, so he doesn't have any rights to Star Wars anymore. But it would be nice if they could let him write them as novels or something, kind of an alternate universe episode 7, 8, and 9. I would just be curious. For better or for worse, I don't know if they'd be better movies or if they'd be prequel movies. But
I'm assuming that he's written down the whole concept.
Yeah, I'm sure it's. Yeah.
So even if he didn't write them as novels, like the story, I'm sure is there fleshed out. Like
right, that somebody could.
Yeah, let's get that. I agree.
I think it would be cool, even if it's not considered canon. It would still be neat to have like the Lucas episodes,
right?
Just to see what the story was.
Totally, I agree. I thought that the movie was I liked it probably close to the same as the first time I watched it, maybe slightly more.
Okay.
And I thought just watching it, even though there were problems with it, like you said, cohesiveness and stuff like that, it still felt like a pretty strong movie. I really like Oscar Isaac, his performance, and who plays Finn?
John Boyega.
John Boyega, yeah, and Daisy Ridley, and like it. I felt like it as far as execution wise, it was really well done. Story wise, I like it. It's just you've got sloppiness with it, but as far as the story goes and the acting for the most part and directing, as sloppy as it gets, I felt like overall it was pretty good. And I'm going to give it 4 out of 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was leaning towards 3.5. I couldn't decide, and I just feel like some of the complaints I had about it, talking about it this time, kind of pushed me a little towards 3 stars. But I mean, it's not a bad movie by any means.
Right.
And like, I don't really understand the hate that it gets online, other than I think people just being I think people had, when Force Awakens came out, people had ideas, their own ideas of where the story was going to go.
Totally, yeah.
And when these movies came out and they didn't fall in line with what they had thought should have happened, they just hated it. And for me, it's fine. It works fine. It's not not as good as the original trilogy, but in my opinion, better than the prequel trilogy. So I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
I definitely have, a temptation to go with 3.5.
Yeah.
But just looking, like when I was watching it, and I was like, I remember, I think when I thought about what I was going to give it, and it was maybe about in the middle of the movie, and I was like, I'm still holding strong, like not heavily on 4 stars, but I think I'm still leaning towards 4. And I just remember seeing Poe, and it was one of his scenes, and I was like, it's a good movie.
Actually, sorry, I just thought of another scene. I mean, you talking about being a good movie and watching Poe and whatnot reminded me of my other favorite scene, which is when he thinks that nobody's coming. They're in the battle scene. His friends and allies are getting shot out of space and everything, and he thinks nobody's coming. And then you hear Lando's voice, and he kind of goes over a ship or something, and he sees everybody there. And you hear the music. The music is really what does it. But the first time I saw that, I got chills when I saw everybody coming to help out, and you hear the Star Wars theme and everything. I really like that scene a lot.
That's funny because I actually wrote a note of that I skipped over, and my note was, Lando has too many friends. I was like, that's a lot of friends. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool too.
Yeah,
definitely.
I assume he was doing like a. I guess it couldn't be a galaxy-wide broadcast, but he was doing some. I assumed he didn't know every single one of them personally, but yeah,
it was a lot of ships. But no, I agree. Like, it was also a very awesome moment.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. You can always leave us a comment on our website, www.cinemaheroes.com. You can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SM and SM Podcast. You can leave a comment on this video on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We appreciate that. And you can always tweet at us on Twitter, @CinemaHeroes. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.